Thanks, everyone. My name is Ridyard. I'm the Director of Collaborations and Partnerships at the Philadelphia Education Fund. And thank you, as Farah mentioned. Oh, Farah, would you like to
And I'm Farah Jimenez, I'm the President and CEO of the Philadelphia Education Fund.
And we're going to talk a little bit today about ecosystems and how to collaborate around collective impact efforts. There's a long history of collective impact work at the Philadelphia Education Fund, and then also, as we're building the plane, we're also launching a college access and success ecosystem for the city of Philadelphia. So we're going to be looking backwards a little bit and also forward in our discussion today. This is just our phone and our contact info so that we can share with you. It's nice.
You guys look great.
I will be forever that age. As Ellen mentioned, the Philadelphia Education Fund has a long history of collaboration. In fact, the organization was founded from two collaborations. One that was focused on expanding math education and another that was really interested in how do we elevate humanities education. And it was formed by a coalition of school district, private sector businesses, as well as at that time, a small nonprofit. We were founded in 1985. At that time, there were just two of us in Philadelphia who were doing college access and success work. By the time we got to 1992, there were a few more, and we helped found the Philadelphia College Prep Roundtable, and its focus is to bring together providers who are in the nonprofit space, and now increasingly also some district staff around professional development for college access and success programs. The National College Attainment Network, that's not what it was called when it first was formed, but we were also part of that effort, getting that off the ground to really bring together the wealth of providers across the nation that were doing this work. At that time, we were also the kind of convener of all the education funds across the nation as well that were doing similar college access work. And then finally in 2006, we were involved in an effort called Project U-Turn, which is kind of sunset a bit in Philadelphia. That was a dropout prevention, collective impact strategy that includes largely nonprofits in the college access and career and educational and training space, as well as funders. More currently, our work in collective impact has largely been in the STEM education space. What's interesting about that is that the first program at the very top, called the Philadelphia STEM Ecosystem, was founded in 2015, and it came out of a national movement to try and get municipalities in particular at the time to think about how do we support schools and students in having more richness in STEM education, and how do we bring people together to think about that. And so it was a grant that was won by another nonprofit called the 21P STEM, ourselves, and the Mayor's Office of Education in Philadelphia. When we started, as you will find, is a theme in a lot of this collective impact work. We had no money, it was just an idea. And basically people came organically to decide to work together, and the focus there over time, now it's not tethered to the Mayor's Office of Education. We're served as a backbone organization for the Education Fund exclusively. We've got 700 members, and that includes individuals who represent public, private, and social sector who are very interested in how do we work together to improve STEM education and STEM education access in Philadelphia. Its focus is primarily in the professional development, in kind of categorical areas. And so people will get together because they're interested in professional development or teacher development or sustainability, computer science. That led to one of the work groups was focused on social justice. GSK, a multinational pharmaceutical company, got very interested in what we were doing in the social justice space as an entity that's very focused on how do they build more diversity in their workforce. They decided they wanted to make a multi-year investment in launching a complementary ecosystem, which is the Philadelphia STEM Equity Collective. What makes it different, why it didn't just sit within the STEM ecosystem, is that it is intentionally focused on driving the needle on outcomes. And so it has very clear valuations element to it, has a theory of change. There's an evaluator that sits as part of the team, and the focus is improving the numbers of students of color and young women who find themselves in STEM careers and in STEM education. That then, of course, led to, as we had more members involved in this kind of outcomes-based work, to the Pennsylvania state-wide STEM ecosystem, because the state was involved in what we were doing locally. And that is basically a collective of all the ecosystems that are across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So you see how it starts to kind of level up. And then ecospheres is all the ecosystems, not just in Pennsylvania, but across the United States, globally, working together to figure out how do you really drive change. So I mentioned earlier that when we first started in 1985, there were just two nonprofits that were largely focused on college access and success. When I joined the Philadelphia's Education Fund, early on I realized that this seemed a bit more crowded than two, and so I asked our team to do a competitive landscape analysis. We identified 65 college access and success programs working with Philadelphia School District children, and that rose a question in me, which is, gosh, if there are 65 programs, why are we not doing better in outcomes? We should be driving the needle in a much more assertive way. So I asked if I could meet with the Chief Academic Officer for the School District of Philadelphia, and I brought this to her, and she invited some of her post-secondary readiness team to that meeting, and they said, well, Farah, you say 65, but our Office of School Partnerships identified 300 college access and success. So, put that whole question on steroids, which is, why are we not really aggressively moving the needle? And a lot of it is obviously around the way alignment doesn't work when you're all kind of in your own silos and doing the work. Very small example for us is we were doing Europe work at one high school in Philadelphia, it serves about 250 students, and we ultimately said to the district we had to leave that school because there were about a dozen programs working in that school providing college access and success programming to the 250 students. Meanwhile, we recently, as we expanded our TRIO program into a 6th Philadelphia high school, chose this particular high school, which has about 1,000 students, which had 0 providers. So that's an example of how when we're all kind of working in silos, we miss the opportunities to really work in a aligned way to drive. And so we were very fortunate after, in 2018, we started having conversations with the school district around what could this look like, how could we work together, started to kind of map out a possible design of an ecosystem with work groups that are working in particular content areas, which John will talk about, who from the school district might sit on that, how to make sure it's data informed, would the school district be willing to lend its research arm to support the work. And then we realized after 2 years of planning, that was about as far as we could go because it really did need the infrastructure to lift that work off the ground. And all of us were sitting at the table as volunteers, kind of trying to squeeze this into our work. It took a while to convince the funder, but now we have some funding, which has allowed us to bring the wonderful Ellen onto the team, whose job it is now after even a month to kind of get this off the ground and running. So I'll turn it over to Ellen to show you where we are.
Thanks, Farah. Yes, it's definitely all about efficiencies and kind of putting our heads together to have the most impact. And as Farah said, I'm super new. This is a super new project. It's a work in progress. It's really exciting, but there's much more to come. And I'm happy to share, kind of what we're thinking, how the planning is going so far, and what some of the tools are, and what are some of the suggestions that have kind of bubbled up where folks have gotten energized around college access and success ecosystem. So as Farah mentioned, there's a big urgent problem around college attainment in Philadelphia. So out of 100 cities, Philly ranks 92nd out of 100. So lots of great educators, school leaders, college access organizations who are doing fabulous work and really connecting students to lots of opportunities around their post-secondary paths and prepping students for their future. But we're not seeing that outcome, translate into students persisting in college. And there are tons of reasons why that's happening, but this is an urgent challenge for our city and for our collective. So how can we connect students to more life-sustaining careers, additional credentials that fit their passions and values and skills? This is what we're proposing, and again, it's very organic, it will evolve, but this is what we're suggesting might be a framework for the ecosystem. So we're going to take a look at these measures. And the first is around financial access. So what percent of students are applying to FAFSA, their state grant applications, both on time and with accuracy. We all know that FAFSA is going to be changing this year. This is going to present, an additional challenge and need for training and support for students and educators and families. So where can we collectively put our heads together and troubleshoot and provide support for students and families throughout the process? We also want to take a look at post-secondary applications. How is our school district and how are our schools tracking this? Are students applying? What students are missing from that pool of applicants? What do students know about when they apply? Are they applying to great fit colleges and post-secondary paths? And then I was really reflecting on the student this morning who said, I just thought for a long part of my life, college wasn't really for me. So how do we get to the heart of, a post-secondary path can be a great fit for you through more exposure and excitement around various paths. We're also going to take a look at on-time high school graduation. So students starting in 9th grade, how many students at our Philadelphia Public Schools are graduating from high school on time, and how are we doing school to school, and where can we kind of collectively support stronger on-time high school graduation. And then the big kind of final culminating work is around post-secondary enrollment and persistence. So we're looking at all kinds of paths, 2-year, 4-year, trade and tech. How many students are starting, kind of first fall matriculation to a post-secondary path? Are they melting? Why? What's going on? How are we able to connect students around options that are manageable for them in terms of affordability and fit, and then taking a look overall at persistence. Because we certainly don't want to be 92nd for much longer. As Farah mentioned, a little bit of just the history of the ecosystem. Farah kind of workshopped and crowdsourced this idea of a college access and success ecosystem with the school district, with school leaders, with other college access organizations in Philly, and said, what do you think about this? It was the quintessential meeting for the meeting. Do you think that PAP should take this on? Do you think it's a good time to take this on? And just kind of gathering that trust and buy-in. In a former session around collaboration with the grad partnerships, forgive me if that's the wrong thing, there was a good point around naming, we all do the student success work, but we all do it a little differently, but we're not going to compete. We're just going to put our heads together, many heads are better than one, and see how we can move the needle. We were really lucky at PEP and I'm fortunate to receive funding from the William Penn Foundation to launch the ecosystem. In part of my research for this launch, I talked to a friend who works on the board at the College Access Consortium in New York, and they have kind of a member-driven kind of consortium model, but they're all volunteers. So he was talking to me about, wow, we can really have some structure and succession planning, and you're asking people for their time, but folks are really volunteering their time. People are busy, so having that resource, I think, will be really important. And then we just got together kind of for the first time in May, and I just wanted to briefly share a little bit about how that went while it's fresh. So what we did was we connected with the Philly College Prep Roundtable, another collective group that Farah mentioned, the Philadelphia Youth Network, and FEND and PEP, and kind of got together and said, this is what we're thinking. What's your reaction to this, and why did you say yes to coming today? We're so glad that you did. And folks were really energized around, there's also similarly a new policy around graduation pathways in Pennsylvania. And so we want to take a look at, what are going to be the outcomes of that this year, with students needing to submit a piece of evidence in order to graduate high school. How will we do? Are there perhaps some pathways where we might be able to support, or some schools that might need, additional troubleshooting or support or creativity around that policy? There was some interest in talking around FAFSA changes and FAFSA support, and then a lot of conversation around documentation. So how to connect students and families to have easier access and information to their tax forms and work permits and things that they might need in order to connect to the post-secondary process. We also talked a lot about who should be at the table and why, and there was a lot of energy around colleges, a lot of energy around workforce, businesses, and other CEOs and other industry leaders. And then we talked about we will talk about some of the tools for the ecosystem, like creating a website and making sure that there's evaluation so that we're driven by impact and always, kind of have that in mind. And much more to come, but we're thinking about, and the big question at our first meeting was around the baseline data of like, where are we? We say we might want to focus on percent of students who are completing FAFSA. So where are we on that? How is that going? So working really closely with the school district Office of Research and Evaluation to kind of get that data. We're thinking about perhaps doing like a reveal. Not that it should be secret in any way, but kind of, having this moment of like, okay, let's look at it, let's name it, let's see where we are and see, where folks might want to put their heads together collectively and work on some of those challenges. So that's a little bit about where we are with the College Access and Success ecosystem. Thank you for your patience and interest, as it is a work in progress. We are building the plane, and we'll have more to come, next year in future conversations. But really appreciate your taking the time to chat with us about collaborations.